So let's go ahead and meet the panelists for today's discussion, starting with Mr. Mike Wood.
Hey everyone, great to be on the webinar today. As Annie mentioned, my name is Mike Wood. I'm a strategic solutions engineer with Procore. A little bit of unique background. I've spent about 7 years collectively with Procore, joined back in 2015. I've spent that whole time really in the solutions engineer role in various capacities. Prior to that, worked in construction for a few different general contractors and used Procore for a few years in the field. And then the other unique part is I spent about a year working for GoFormz in 2021, leading their construction division. So looking forward to the discussion today and talking about how GoFormz and Procore can be used together to streamline processes.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. My name is Annie Benavides, and I'm the Director of Business Development here at GoFormz, overseeing our partner ecosystem. That means I get to work with wonderful people and companies like Procore and the rollout crew. So I am also looking forward to today's discussion. Mr. Aaron Slack.
Thanks, Annie. My name is Aaron Slack. I'm a solutions consultant for GoFormz. Prior to working for GoFormz, I was a customer of GoFormz for about 10 years. We were one of the earliest adopters of GoFormz and rolled it out to about 300 to 500 field service techs and construction workers. So I've seen kind of both the sides of this whole construction schema.
Awesome. And Chris Lyle.
Hey there, everyone. Chris Lyle, not to be mistaken as Kyle, but often happens. Was one of the original certified consultants for Procore, and then also kind of a formal extension of the GoFormz team on the PS side. And yeah, just happy to be here and looking forward to contributing.
Great. So let's cover today's discussion topics. First, we will be starting off with understanding construction technology and why more firms are embracing it, followed by standardizing construction projects and operations, reducing manual data entry and human errors, and enhancing project visibility and reporting standards, followed by Q&A. So again, as we're running through these topics and you have questions that pop in, please feel free to funnel those in through the chat. We will be monitoring those and answer them in just a few minutes here towards the tail end of today's topic. And we are also recording this session. So if you do have colleagues that wanted to join today but could not, we will have that recording readily available to you in the next day or so. So again, looking forward to jumping into today's topics. So let's go ahead and get started with understanding construction technology and why more firms are embracing it. First question here is, what types of tools are available on the market? Who from the panel would love to go ahead and cover this?
Yeah, I can jump in on that one. Just excuse me, a couple thoughts. As you kind of look at the construction technology landscape, I mean, obviously technology has been around for a long time in the industry. We've had, plenty of things that we've utilized, but I would say over the last, 5+ years, 5 to 7 years, we've really seen a pretty good influx in new technologies that have come to the industry, new ways to do things and manage data and processes. I think you have your typical project management solutions out there, similar to a Procore and others that are going to manage kind of the core piece of a business. But I think there's, many new tools for capturing data in the field, and GoFormz falls into that, certainly in terms of being able to help people capture the necessary data. I think there's been a lot of advancements around the ability to manage and aggregate data. People are really starting to adopt, whether it's Power BI or Tableau or whatever it is, to really start to manage and harness their data for their construction businesses. More modern systems around accounting and other facets of the industry that make it easier to manage data and processes. I think the advent of artificial intelligence to more predictively and easily capture data rather than, manually capturing all of that is a huge advancement as well. And I think the final thing I would say is a big advancement is modern systems overall. And Procore and GoFormz are a perfect example of that. With the modernization of construction technology, we now can use APIs and other technology to create really powerful integrations, which we're going to talk more about today. But I think that is the underpinning piece. Is construction technology has advanced, and technology in general has advanced in a way that allows us to connect systems like we never could before. And I think that's going to be a huge focus for today.
Cool. Any other commentary that we'd like to add here? Otherwise, I thought that was a really solid answer, Mike. All right.
Go with Mike's.
Yeah. All right. Why is tech stack alignment so important? Aaron, I have a feeling this is coming your way.
Okay, thanks, Annie. Well, I can honestly say in today's world, your tech stack is really the core of your operations at any company. With how much everybody uses the internet and with all the systems that are out there today, really this is what drives your company. So if your tech stack isn't aligned, it raises a ton of problems. I mean, the first and foremost that you'll see right out the gate is low adoption rates. If it doesn't align with the company, nobody's going to want to use it. It's as simple as that. And then from that point, it just leads to other issues as well. So as far as like increasing manual process, if people don't like, if this tech stack's not aligned, people are going to want to do this manually, which then leads to the cost of the tech sitting on the tech stack sitting on the shelf because nobody really wants to use it at that point. And then at the same time, you end up with poor standardization and duplicate process because everybody's just pretty much trying to do it however they feel is best. And I mean, it can even cause things outside of that as well. I mean, even if you have low adoption rate on your tech stack, I mean, even morale. I mean, it lowers morale. Nobody wants to use this stuff if it isn't perfectly aligned. So it's very crucial that your tech stack has been well thought out and is perfectly aligned with the company as a whole. I mean, even stuff as simple as onboarding can be tougher if your tech stack isn't aligned. Everybody's going to want to be trained. Everybody's going to do training in different ways. Everybody's going to want to bring on people in different ways. So even it really ripples throughout the company as a whole if the tech stack isn't perfectly aligned.
Yep. I think it's safe to say that people do not like change. So as long as we can slowly move them into change easily without ruffling any feathers, I think the better. All right. And why is it important to outline and understand your goals before investing in technology? I think, Chris Lyle, this question has your name written all over it.
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of times we get brought into situations where we're trying to correct this when this doesn't go according to plan. When, you just buy something because it's the fancy tool that everyone else has. And the assumption is that it's just going to plug and play and work. But I think really taking time to do a formal assessment internally or with a consultant, but really just having some internal huddle time to align on what your true goals are and where you're hoping to end up, beginning with the end in mind, is really critical to measure, the journey getting there. And not just being hopeful and optimistic that, it's just so easy and user-friendly, it's just going to work. That rarely plays out well. So I think it really can't be overstated how important it is to chart out what your true goals are, be as concrete and explicit about what those are and how the tools are going to help you achieve that final outcome.
Great. Again, just as a reminder, as we're running through these questions and answers, if you have your own questions, please feel free to funnel those into the chat. So moving into our next topic of standardizing construction projects and operations. First question is, how do firms leverage tools like Procore and GoFormz for this purpose? I think this might be a combination of a few folks on this panel, so I'll leave it up to the team.
I'll take a...
Go ahead, Chris. I can follow you.
I mean, I think Mike and I are going to say similar things. In the case of Procore and GoFormz, one of the neat things is the ability to leverage data that's in one system pulled into another, or capture it in one system and push it back to the other. So I think reducing just, double entry or leveraging data that is canon, that is Bible, and not having free-form inputs. So whether it's project drop-downs or cost codes or users, I think being able to just take advantage of data that is already present in one system and connecting that into another in a push-pull way is really valuable. And then also just knowing that wherever data is captured, wherever your system of truth is, your source records, knowing that you can get that data back in there. And the Procore and GoFormz scene, oftentimes Procore is kind of the final repo, the resting place, but maybe there's some odd use cases where GoFormz is required for kind of unique data capture. But knowing that that data can get back into Procore, I think is really important.
Yeah, I would agree to that. And I think, I think there's also the piece around your data is only as consistent as your processes. So I think, as you look at construction operations, multiple projects, divisions, whatever the complexity is, every company is going to have different needs and, different processes that they're trying to standardize. But, if you look at safety forms, or you look at QA/QC forms, or anything that you're trying to capture from folks in the field, you have so many different variables in terms of skill level, knowledge level, in terms of how this project team wants to do things versus this project type versus this owner, or however you want to look at it. There's so many different variables. And I think, many times we say, okay, well, people will figure it out. They'll get the data they need to. But standardizing really comes down to, okay, figuring out, hey, what type of data do we need to capture? Why do we need to capture it? What are we going to do with it? And then it all comes down to, let's get the right tools in the hands of the people that's going to allow them to quickly and easily capture this data, while also streamlining that data to whatever system we're trying to analyze and view that data, right? So if I give someone a job hazard analysis form at my company and it's the same form across the board, I know I need to capture the same 10, 15 different data points. Great. Now I'm giving them an easy to use tool such as GoFormz, where I can say, look, this is the exact form you filled out on a piece of paper or on a spreadsheet or a Word doc or whatever it was. I'm just now giving it to you in a way that our whole company is using it across every single project. You're going to fill out the same data points. Data is going to be different. Circumstances are different. But now I'm capturing the same 10 to 15 data points across my 30, 100, 500 different construction projects that I'm running. Now I can push that into Procore in a myriad of ways to a number of different tools where I can say, great, these 10 to 15 data points, I have all of that data in Procore. I can report on that. I can analyze the data. I know exactly how I'm doing across my 30, 50, 100 different projects. But if you don't have that standardization and everybody's doing it their own way, some do it on a spreadsheet, some do it on a different solution, some do it on paper and scan it in, some manually rekey that. It's really difficult to get that consistent data, that consistency of operations and processes. So I think that's where the combination becomes really powerful, is figuring out what do you want to collect, why are you collecting it, how you're going to manage it, and then setting up a process in the field and in your projects that everyone can follow the same process, and you're then creating consistent process and consistent data.
Love it. All right. How can these tools enhance operational best practices? Mr. Aaron Slack.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, GoFormz and Procore are both extremely versatile and open-ended products. And the fact that they freely integrate is opening doors to enhancing best practices and enhancing standardization and all over the place inside of a company. Procore can supply structure and to processes that in a lot of business that are not standardized. Quoting, for example, is a good example of cases where it's in a lot of cases are not standardized. And in a construction environment, that's really important because you don't want things double quoted. You also don't want things misquoted. You want to do it, you want to go out there, quote it right the first time and be done with it. The beauty here is that with Procore structure and GoFormz front end, they kind of augment themselves. And with GoFormz supplying a front end to the data collection, everyone at the business is already comfortable with whatever quoting methodology they want to use through GoFormz, and it makes standardization easier. Even, for example, in the field, GoFormz is also very good at maintaining standardization. If you have a standardized way of doing things in the field and on the job site, it's very easy to take that standardized form that you have already and have been using for years and years and bring it into GoFormz. And the beauty of that is nobody likes filling out paperwork, and it's just something nobody ever really likes doing. But the beauty of this is that you can take the same thing that everybody has been filling out for years upon years and bring it on the job site and do it digitally, and then bring it back into Procore for everyone to administrate and to operationally view and really start automating process, really.
Awesome. And then I think we're going to talk about a use case here that we share with Procore on the GoFormz side, Balmain & Co.'s use case. I think, Aaron, this is coming back your way.
Yep. Balmain & Co., they are a construction company out of Melbourne, Australia. They came to us after purchasing Procore. They build apartment buildings, I think in between like 50 to 150 apartment buildings. The big use case they had was that after they build the apartment buildings, the owners, they wanted to funnel the owners' concerns and possible defect reporting, and to funnel it through a system and into Procore. Because before it was just all being done through email or phone or whatever means of communication they had. So in their case, what they wanted to do is streamline it and have it go directly into Procore. So what they did is they went and reached out to GoFormz. GoFormz helped them build a solution to where they use public forms to where any of these apartment owners, if they find something that may be a defect inside of the building, they can go and fill out a public form and add pictures to it. And then it then routes into Procore and then alerts everybody on the Procore side and on the business at the admin side that there's been a situation at one of the buildings. And the beauty of all of this is it provides transparency between management and the field, because of the fact that this is coming in. So that person administratively can determine, okay, by these pictures, this is an electrical problem, or this is a plumbing problem, and send out an electrician or a plumber, which then saves return trips. You don't want to have to send out an electrician just to find out that you have a plumbing problem, because it just delays things, and then everybody on both ends is more upset. This also provides transparency to the customer as well, so that way the customer is aware of who's coming out. The customer feels good that they know they've been heard. It isn't like leaving a voicemail on somebody at some company waiting for somebody to come out. They have transparency in knowing that that their case has been heard, and all the data that is needed for Balmain & Co. to fix the issue that they have.
Awesome. All right, moving along to reducing manual data entry and human errors. I think this is across the board something that all organizations are always trying to deal with and manage. So let's get started here. How do firms leverage tools, Procore and GoFormz for this purpose? I think this is also a combination between Aaron and
Yeah.
Mike, you want to take this?
Sure. Yeah, I'll jump in on this one first. So I think we talk about, reducing the manual data entry and the human errors. It kind of, I'll reflect back to the point I made earlier is, I think it all comes down to the process and the tools that are set up for folks that are actually managing this. I think, getting out of paper and potentially random spreadsheets and other, ways that you're capturing the data that's just not consistent and maybe not as controlled, I think is the key. I think when people are guided down the path of what they need to fill out, and how they need to collect that data, that's really where success comes, right? So I think being able to help people really understand, hey, what is my role? What do I need to fill out? What am I managing? Rather than, okay, great, I'm taking a piece of paper out in the field, I'm filling it out, I'm coming back to the trailer, I'm scanning that in, or I'm typing that in. There's a huge shift there to say, hey, I pull this up on my phone with a QR code through GoFormz, I fill out the safety data or the quality data that I need to, or the safety orientation data for the day. I hit send and it's transmitted. That's a huge shift from, manually filling that out and potentially rekeying it somewhere else, or, potentially not putting in the right data. I think there's just a huge power in serving up exactly what someone needs to complete while they're right there on the spot. Again, I love the fact that, out in the field, we can post QR codes wherever they need to be, allow someone to pull that up on their phone or an iPad or whatever they need to, and fill out like a pre-task plan, let's say, right there on the spot. Again, I'm not taking a clipboard, I'm not taking an Excel sheet, I'm not taking anything that's not connected to the true data source that I want it to be. And now I'm streamlining that process. I can also, through GoFormz, which I think is powerful, navigate them through conditionally. If I only want them to fill out this section, great, only have them fill that out. If they select, a certain thing, like on a pre-task plan that they're going to do hot work permit, perfect. Let them click that box and open up that permit for them to fill out. It's really, the key is streamlining that experience for folks in the field to make that easy for them. At the end of the day, the paperwork has to be done and they have to go through those processes. They know that. But I think these types of technologies and these integrations and these processes allows people to easily do that, get it done, and then move on with their day and really focus on the work that's being done on a project site. So I think for me, to summarize, it's really getting out of the paper and the processes that just are not creating efficiency and are opening the door for potentially human error there, and just streamlining that process.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because the two products working in tandem with each other is really what helps reduce the manual entry and human errors, because of the fact that you have everybody on the front end that can view all project data, any data that's really on the back end, and by having that on their forms, it totally helps with human errors, really, and reducing manual entry. You figure the guy gets out on the site, if he brings up a report or an inspection, a lot of that stuff is already populated for him. So that helps both reducing the manual entry, because he isn't going to have to do it. And then your data is going to be coming in clean back into Procore at the end, because it came in correctly to the form to begin with. So it's just really a cycle between the two products that really refine and reduce your human errors and reduce manual data entry. Because once the form comes back in, all the data is there. Nobody has to key it in. It's an entirely different world.
Perfect. How can these tools enhance data accuracy and processing speed? Mike.
Yeah, I think, when you look at processes out in the field and how you can kind of increase the efficiency there and the way that they're processing that data, it really is creating that environment where they have the tools right there in front of them. I used the examples before of a JHA or a pre-task plan, or any other form, a request form, a sign-in form, an orientation. People are doing job toolbox talks all the time. Provide those tools and provide the ability to fill that data out there right there on the spot, rather than, hey, let's go through the process, let's have a toolbox talk, let's go back to the trailer, let's fill out a piece of paper, let's have everybody sign it, let's scan that in, let's put it in some place where we can't report on it. I think the data accuracy and the processing speed all comes down to putting the right tools in the people's hands. So with GoFormz, I can be walking around, I can fill out that pre-task plan or that JHA form or anything else that I may need to on the site. And as I'm keying it in, once I'm done, I can send that off, and it's going to sync right to Procore or other systems that I may be using. Now I've dramatically decreased the time it's going to take me to fill that data out and actually process it to the right location. And then you start to get into other things of, okay, well, what if I need a response on that? What if I need someone to status update that to say, hey, look, this JHA is approved, or this pre-task plan is approved, or hot work permit, whatever it is. I can do that all through the integration. Now the two systems are connecting in terms of Procore and GoFormz, maybe even a text message. Now we're increasing that processing speed of, I get everything done almost instantaneously as I'm going through this. I don't have to fill out the JHA, call a superintendent or call someone else and say, hey, I just filled this out, I'm going to email it over. Why don't you take a look? Email me back any thoughts. we cut that out, right? When we connect to really powerful systems like this, giving the right tools in the field to instantaneously fill out the data and get that data, automatically synced over to a system like Procore and really close the loop on time-consuming efforts is what I would say.
Awesome. And then I think to round us out, we've got a use case from Fast Track, and Chris is going to be covering this.
Yeah, we can get a little bit more concrete on some of the comments before. A few years ago, we worked with a specialty contractor, Fast Track Specialties, based out of Texas. And they process hundreds of work orders a month. And these work orders, previously, they were basically having to leverage an Excel sheet that had agreed upon unit prices for like labor install for certain types of material. And it was really challenging, I think, to make sure that when you're building out a work order and you're saying what units need to be installed, that one, you're spelling things consistently correctly, two, that the cost codes that go with those are accurately associated with them. More importantly, the unit prices, that those are being respected and not being accidentally adjusted or something. And so we introduced, they were already getting on board with Procore, and we introduced GoFormz into the mix to standardize how their work orders are generated. So we basically created a work order template that allowed the user to go in and pick into a row and choose from a drop down what unit needed to be installed for that particular work order. And the end user, they only see what unit they're tagging, but behind the scenes in a GoFormz database, we're associating that selection with the cost code, with the unit price, with the unit of measure, and a few other important data points. And so as they're building out that work order in GoFormz, once that's completed and goes through a review cycle, we leveraged GoFormz workflow engine to pick that up and take all that data and create a commitment, a subcontract in Procore. And, stuff that came over was like the title, a description of the work order, but more importantly, all the SOV data. And so from that single selection of a unit that needed to be installed, we were able to consistently build out the schedule of values, which was a really critical piece, of a subcontract in Procore. And so it was just neat to see how we can take basically Excel data that they already have, but that they're having to manually kind of manage, and then bake that into GoFormz to just streamline the data capture. So it was a fun project, and they're still using it to this day.
Very cool. All right. Thank you for that. Rounding out our last topic, enhancing project visibility and reporting standards. First question, how do firms leverage tools like Procore and GoFormz for this purpose? I think this is also going to be a combination of Aaron and Mike.
Sure. Happy to take the lead on that one. I think the visibility and the reporting, I think, is only as good as the data, right? So if we're not capturing good data and we're not capturing what we need to, the reporting is just not going to be what we want it to, right? It's kind of garbage in, garbage out type of thing. I think when it comes to project visibility and reporting standards, there's a number of things at play here. Knowing that a form that's completed in GoFormz out in the field can be synced really anywhere across the Procore platform is powerful. I think of one example around kind of daily log compliance. So, for example, with the integration, you can have somebody fill out a form in the field to capture what they did for the day, how many people were on site, issues they ran into, deliveries, whatever it is. Be able to capture everything that's happening on the site. That can all be synced right over to Procore. So now, anyone who's managing that site, they know exactly all the contractors that were on site, what they did. They've got pictures of the work that they did, and we're tracking all of that key data. And we can even update fields in Procore. And I think that's where the visibility and the reporting comes into play, is without a human needing to go into Procore and say, this person was on site or this company was on site. Here's how many people. Here's the status of their daily log for the day. That can all be automated through the integration, which is incredible. So now you're capturing the data from people out in the field who are actually doing the work and can vouch for what's being done. And then you're updating things dynamically on the Procore side to create complete visibility. And now your reporting is clean, right? Instead of, all right, let's capture the data in a PDF or in an Excel sheet or wherever it may be. Let's have whoever it is key that manually into Procore. Let's have them update all the data. Hopefully it gets done. Maybe it doesn't. Now we're not necessarily putting all that burden on someone. We're using technology to really streamline those processes and save people tons of time. So now when I go in there, I do have complete visibility and I have the reporting I want, and I've automated that. So, and I think that's just a huge key, right? Is being able to automate those processes while also capturing the right data.
Yeah, you brought up exactly what I was going to bring up, was any sort of like daily task or daily work that is performed, anything that's collected on a daily basis is incredibly valuable to bring into Procore and to just simply have and stored. The fact that it's all collected real time on a daily basis is vital to a company, not only just from a reporting standpoint and for project visibility, but I mean, having a daily log of everything that went on, having pictures, having all of these forms stored. When I was at the construction company, I was at the implemented GoFormz. The big thing that we found was that for auditing purposes, if you were ever audited on what work was performed that day, that you had a full log, visual log at that, of everything that was performed, and that saved us a ton of situations involving where we had customers reaching out claiming that something wasn't done correctly or something we did or didn't do, and we had a full log of everybody who was there on site, pictures of what was performed, and really the time that was spent there. So really, it saves it. It's helpful from a reporting standpoint, but also from an auditing standpoint as well.
Awesome. What are the benefits of achieving real-time data reporting? I think, Mike, this is coming your way.
Sure. I think it comes down to being proactive versus reactive, right? Mm-hmm. So, it's a lot easier when we have all the data in front of us, whether that's, constantly being updated, whether that's once a day, we're getting a nice clean download of everything that's happening in our job. That's a lot different than, hey, do we know that we have all the data? Do we know that, everyone's inputting the right data at the right time? But I think it's really proactive rather than reactive. It helps make decisions quicker. It helps make decisions in a smarter way. Because, for example, if we go back to that daily log example, I can now be confident that I'll look in say Procore in my system of record and say, okay, I've got my drywall or whomever is on site that's doing work. I know exactly how many people they've had over the last 3 weeks. I know how we're tracking. I know any issues that we've come across, as opposed to, I'm not sure we have tracked all that. I don't know when they've been on site. I don't know what work's been done. I don't know what issues we have. So I think the biggest key is being able to proactively make decisions and changes rather than reactively wondering, do we have the right data? Are we making the right choice? And that's where I think that can compound and create other issues down the line by not having the right insights at the right time. So again, the more we can put the right tools in the hands of the people to allow them to capture that data, move on with their lives, do their jobs, but on the back end, provide the right data to make decisions that are then going to in turn affect the daily decisions and moves of the project. So to me, it's kind of a flywheel, right? It's collect the right data in the field, get that data into the right source, make the right decisions at the right time proactively. Those proactive right decisions are then going to positively impact the site. If any of those pieces break down, you just can't continue to make the right decisions on site is how I would see it.
Perfect. And then rounding us out with another use case is Chris with Duke Energy.
Yeah, so this was another fun one that we did with Duke last year. And as you're probably aware, Duke Duke's construction projects aren't your typical commercial vertical building up, right? It's more linear construction. So they're laying pipe. The job site is wherever the crew's at. And a lot of out-of-box systems, Procore included, it's really challenging to track work being performed along a right-of-way. So railways, highways, that gets pretty challenging because you don't really have your location-based work like building 1, 2, room 223. It's more, at what mile marker or what station number are you at? And so in terms of reporting, there's obviously a lot of information that's being tracked on a daily basis on these types of projects. And in Duke's case, there was a lot of quantity tracking, and there was a lot of crews that were doing this, and a lot of different types of crews. And so we ended up designing a whole bunch of different, or actually we converted existing daily inspection reports that they were already using. So the look and feel stayed the same in GoFormz. So there was no real impact on the end user for knowing what to do or how to use it. But we really made those forms smart. And so they're tracking, units installed along the right of way every single day across, a dozen, 2 dozen crews. And then we took all that information and we created some custom Power BI dashboards that showed crew performance, progress along the right of way. And we're able to actually visually map the major phases and milestones of the pipeline construction in a way that the entire team on a daily basis could basically real time look and see how they were doing on the project, what percentage complete they were on the projected SOVs that had to be installed. Again, what crews were really, kicking butt, where they were falling behind. So it was a really, really neat use case where we got to get into the details of the actual quantities being tracked and surface that up in a way that was really easy to interpret and understand at a more aggregate level.
Very cool. Nice. I think we are now moving into questions for the panel. So we are here. Let's open it up. Keith, I know you were there monitoring the questions in the chat. Do we have some good ones? All right.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions here in the chat, and they kind of revolve a little bit around the same thing. Is that how can Justin in the chat go as how GoFormz offers integration with Procore, and Procore has some similar functionality, but what are the best ways that you guys see that GoFormz integrates with Procore? What is the value that Procore users can get out of GoFormz and vice versa? And Kyle, I know that you with the rollout crew do this a lot, connecting these two systems and getting the most out of them. But this may be something you can touch on, but also you all, Andy, you may have some input on this, but also Mike, what do you guys see as the biggest ways to leverage both the integration of GoFormz and Procore together? What can they give to a client or a firm?
Sure. And you're right. A lot of times, someone might start off with just Procore and they, that's what they got, right? So we want to ensure that our clients are fully flexing on the tool that they already have in hand before we start throwing other things into the mix. And Procore does offer a number of tools that are similar to, a forms tool maybe. So they actually have a forms tool. It's good for offline kind of data capture. If the form is kind of funky or it's table based or there's a look and a feel that has to be preserved, it's really great. It's basically a fillable PDF. Downside with the forms tool is it's all dead static data, so you can't report on any of it. And then we'd like to try and see, all right, well, can we get this into the inspections tool? The inspection tool is great. All the data is reportable. And the out-of-box reports tool and also analytics. But sometimes table data is really challenging. And that's really the biggest point of friction I feel like we see, where there's a gap in the system to be able to support the client's requirements. you can have custom responses with the inspections tool, and you can create as many of those as you want. But to a certain extent, you know, like on table data forms, your table data. So any kind of form where you see like an Excel, where Excel is the data capture. Sorry, I'm answering Justin's question. He's just wanting a little bit more details on what I mean by table data. So it could be like a welding log, or anything just where there's columns and rows, right? In Procore, you're limited in how you can kind of convert that over to a tool. In the forms tool, it can look exactly the same. In the inspections tool, you almost have to pivot it and make every, you know, row with all the column attributes a section in the inspections tool. And as you can imagine, that inspection list is going to get really long. There's going to be a lot of scrolling. Visually, it might not be intuitive that all the data is related. And so that's really a common use case where we would then defer to GoFormz, because also oftentimes in table data scenarios, there are predefined, you know, values that you don't want to change, or there's different types of inputs that you want to be associated with other inputs. So kind of like the fast track and Duke scenario laid out above, if you're claiming that you're doing work on a particular unit or item, but you want that to be associated with the unit cost, the predefined unit cost, or a cost code, you can't really upload rate tables, you know, for instance, into Procore. And so GoFormz has this functionality with their data sources, and you can basically upload all that and then feed that into a form. And it really just simplifies the data capture from the end user's perspective and makes things a lot more consistent and predictable.
That's great.
And anyone else wants to chime in?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I think, you know, to all of Chris's points, I think the real big difference between filling out a form in Procore in the actual forms tool, and obviously there's inspections and a few others that we can handle data. I think when you're getting into some of the conditional situations of form data and data entry, like Chris was talking about, that's where GoFormz is really powerful. One of my favorite, and I mentioned this earlier, but I'll say it again, someone filling out a pre-task plan. If they want to fill out the pre-task plan in the field, that's great. They can do that in GoFormz. But I love that, you know, they can indicate which work they're doing, hot work, confined space, whatever it is. And that the difference there is GoFormz can then build a template that serves up those permit docs right there. So I'm filling out my pre-task plan. I indicate hot work and confined space. It will pull up those other two sheets right there in my form template. So I can fill that out and then push that over to Procore. And obviously, you know, Chris mentioned, you know, if you have more table-like structure that's like Excel that you're trying to do in a form, that's where GoFormz really excels. They can manage that data in a much different way. So I think it's a lot of those conditional situations where you need to fill out data in a very specific way. And if you fill out this piece of data or check this box and you want another piece of data to be exposed to fill out for the user, perfect example for GoFormz.
Yeah, and I think one more thing to tack on is, you know, when you're filling out something in the inspections tool, having designated reviewers and approvers who are pinged and notified is also somewhat challenging. And in GoFormz, in almost every use case we've baked out, there's some sort of form approval process where it needs to pass through different roles. And so we're able to do that in GoFormz pretty easily and customize the emails that are sent out to the respective users and really make sure that the data capture prior to being kind of approved and seen as good data and passed back into Procore has been vetted and seen by all the appropriate parties and even collecting signatures on it. So a lot of flexibility around form approval that you don't necessarily have in Procore out of the box.
Those are great, great answers. And I think you answered a couple of people's questions with that. So thank you, Mike and Chris, for that input there. I think we have time for one more question here that we had. One of it has to do with collaborating with vendors and clients. How one of them says, our firm needs a better, or sorry, the question has to do with how can you see firms leveraging tools like GoFormz, Procore to meet the requirements of their clients and vendors. So I think the way this is saying is like most of these tools, we talked about internal use cases with staff, but how do you see these tools being leveraged out with outside and meeting the needs of sharing documents or data with your clients, or even with internal contractors or vendors that need access to it? How do you see it being leveraged that way?
The one way that at the company I was at before that we started to leverage, we leveraged public forms a lot for this, utilizing GoFormz, to where if we were going to bring on a vendor and a vendor needed to be set up, we could easily send them a public form to fill out all the information that they that we needed from them. And then at the same time, with the new file attachment feature that GoFormz has, we could have them attach a W-2, and then any sort of insurance information. If they have insurance information, they can simply attach that as PDF, and then it goes back on through. And a lot of times we could just simply automate the vendor being set up. And then we had the attachments as well, so we had their W-2 information there. And same goes for like subcontractors. Subcontractors was a big one that we were able to leverage public forms to do work for. If we were subbing out somebody, we could set it up to where we had the subcontractor set up, they receive the public form link, and then it goes back into GoFormz just like any other form does. And you can rip off the data. And the beauty is with it too, is a lot of these subcontractors have their own forms that they want to fill out. They're used to their forms. So if you can tell the subcontractor, oh, just send your paperwork over to us, we'll just set it up in GoFormz, so that way they're used to it. Everybody loves it. It makes change management easier, and it makes working with your subcontractors easier too.
Perfect.
That's great input. Anyone else have any input on that? That was a great answer though, Aaron. Great. I think that's going to do it. I know we're running close on time. We're a little bit over. So Annie, I'll let you take control of the next slides here.
Sure. So in conclusion, if you want to learn more or get in touch with us, here are some contact details regarding the team from GoFormz, the team from Procore, and of course the rollout crew. Again, we are here to help. We're here to help you explore. So feel free to take a screenshot of this. And of course, like mentioned earlier, you will have this recording in your hands within the next day or so. So with that, we appreciate you being here with us, and we hope that you have learned a lot today. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks all.